I mean, arguably, I'll bet you even if she was naked as shit, she would be indistinguishable from a cis woman. Like, I could bet. So, stallionslaughter@gmail.com, Leyna Bloom, if you'll just send me a couple of nudies, I will prove it to everybody. Okay. So, Sports Illustrated puts transgender woman, biological man, on cover. Like, that's the thing, is that, like, no one sits around and says that this isn't true or whatever. It's just unnecessary.
Time when Sports Illustrated was supposed to be a sports magazine. Yeah, that was funny. Sports Illustrated, I was a long time subscriber to Sports Illustrated. I will acknowledge that as a religious person, I always took the option, you can do this, of calling up Sports Illustrated and not getting the swimsuit edition, which was
he's lying.
Basically,
he's lying right now.
Material for teenage boys. I would always.
Yeah, he was once a teenage boy, so he's lying. I don't look at conservative channels because they are lying to themselves. When I see the likes for Steven, I feel bad for America. True. I look into conservative channels because I like to see what they're thinking about. And it's because I want to stay on top of whatever narrative that they're pushing and see if I can come up with a counter narrative to it when it's appropriate. If they're saying something that's true, then I leave it alone. If they're saying something that's wrong, then we'll go over it. In this case, Ben Shapiro, anytime he ever talks about trans issues at all, he's always wrong. So no matter what, anytime Ben Shapiro opens his mouth about transgender people ever, he's always completely and totally wrong. So endless stream of content right there.
Always call up Sports Illustrated and say, add an issue to the end of my subscription and just don't send the swimsuit edition. But the swimsuit edition has been a long time thing for Sports Illustrated, and always basically it was hot models in body paint on the beach. That's always what it was. Well, now Sports Illustrated, because it has become another preserve of the woke, has decided that it is time to cram down on red-blooded American males a particular perception of female beauty, namely dudes. So there is a trans woman.
Wait, because I've seen part of this before. I want to keep that in our heads.
Beauty, namely dudes.
We want to keep
cram down on red-blooded American males a particular perception of female beauty, namely dudes.
A particular perception of female beauty, namely dudes. Okay, keep that in mind.
So there is a trans woman who has now been featured on the cover of Sports Illustrated. This is the trans woman whose name is Leyna Bloom. Now, Leyna Bloom has had surgeries and hormone treatment and looks physically like a woman.
I mean, arguably, I'll bet you even if she was naked as shit, she would be indistinguishable from a cis woman. Like, I could bet. So, stallionslaughter@gmail.com, Leyna Bloom, if you'll just send me a couple of nudies, I will prove it to everybody.
Right, which, by the way, seems rather transphobic to me. Because if you truly, Sports Illustrated, wanted to make the case that trans women are women, then trans women shouldn't have to look like swimsuit models.
Hold on! I thought that she was a dude. That's the So he said, cram down the red-blooded American male, the look of a woman, namely dudes. But now he's complaining that she looks like a woman.
In fact, trans women, I mean, this seems fatphobic to me. Trans women should actually look like Laurel Hubbard. Why isn't Laurel Hubbard on the cover of the Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition?
Because Sports Illustrated goes for a specific type of woman, right? Sports Illustrated always has. They're always looking for, big fucking fabric stretching hoinky doinkies, little bitty waists, and giant badonkadonks. Like that's what they go for all the time. They're going for a specific genre of woman, and Leyna Bloom looks like all the rest of the women that are featured on Sports Illustrated. So what is he fucking saying right now?
The New Zealand weightlifter who's now going to be weightlifting in the Olympics and has more to do with sports than Leyna Bloom. And why is it that only a trans woman who looks like a stereotypical swimsuit model in a low-cut bikini
Because Sports Illustrated wants stereotypical bikini models on their covers, so it'll sell more copies. Duh.
Is now considered a fitting figure for.
I just love the way he keeps looking at that picture. His palms begin to perspirate, his eyes dilating, his hands shaking. He feels palpitations in his chest. He is definitely turned the fuck on right now.
Fitting figure for the cover of Sports Illustrated. Seems very, very fatphobic, very transphobic, frankly, because
it's just funny to see him try to like, what is this, like fake woke or whatever? No, it's there's a word for it. It'll come to me.
It seems to suggest that the only trans women who ought to be treated as women are trans women who conform to all stereotypes regarding women.
All women on Sports Illustrated, and this is like a common complaint from like feminists and stuff like that, is that women who appear in magazines aren't like real women, in that they don't look like a typical woman. Like, these women are surgically enhanced, and they have Photoshop and all that shit. I'm surprised he isn't asexual. No, I don't think that he would admit that, even if he was. Let's see here. Ben, why are you on the cover of Gremlin Weekly? I mean, it's kind of fricked of them to want a little gremlin man on the cover of Gremlin Weekly, right? He's so stupid. It's crazy.
I mean, Leyna Bloom, my understanding is, has had all of the surgeries to fake female body parts. But as we know, that is to suggest that is a requirement of trans women to be treated as women is violative of their norms.
True.
It is violative.
I know that he's being sarcastic, but that's true.
Of decency. So,
but Sports Illustrated doesn't have to feature, like, you know, if I was a woman, they wouldn't have to feature me on the cover, because they're just looking for women that look like Leyna Bloom.
Truly, Sports Illustrated has not.
This is that Harvard education for sure.
Not gone far enough until Sports Illustrated suggests that red-blooded American males get used to the idea of a trans woman who looks exactly like a man.
What? But no, okay.
Because as we know, sex is really all in your head.
No.
Gender is really all in your head.
True. Gender is your internal understanding of sex. Yes.
And the person on the cover of Sports Illustrated shouldn't have to be a swimsuit model looking male masquerading as female.
But if the person is indistinguishable from women, then what really is the difference? You know, like, whenever you encounter somebody on the street, you're not interacting with their chromosomes. You're not interacting with their hormone receptors or their neural pathways. You're interacting with the whole person and their outward expression of these things. So I don't understand why this is such a big deal.
It should be a dude with twig and berries and chest hair and no fake breasts being treated essentially the same as a woman. That's when we know we've reached parity, I think. I think that's the really important thing. Now, look, the reason that Sports Illustrated is doing this is for the bleeps and giggles, right? They are doing it to push forward the quote-unquote social justice agenda.
Or because Leyna Bloom is hot and they want to sell copies of their magazine. So they selected Leyna Bloom, who is like unrealistically fucking hot, who's had probably many surgeries. There's probably a lot of Photoshop on that image. And this is true of cis women as well on the cover of Sports Illustrated. They treat all of these photos. And so, like, Leyna Bloom is not getting any treatment that would be, you know, is any different than any other woman. But Ben Shapiro has a problem with this because Leyna Bloom was born, you know, AMAB.
The idea being that if they push forward a biological man on the cover of Sports Illustrated as a woman, and if you say no, even if that biological man has...
But why? Why, though? That's the confusing part, is like, what really, if you can't tell the difference, even if someone is naked. Like, I really don't understand. So now, this is my problem with this, is that they say that these people would be, oh no, it would be totally different if they got all the surgeries and everything like that. But it obviously doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't actually matter. These people are just against the idea of transitioning at all. And that's really sad.
Any surgeries and hormone treatments to look like a woman, that is still a biological man. And if you say that, then this means that you are somehow transphobic.
Yes. Because there is no difference. Like, if you literally can't tell the difference just by looking at a person, or, you know, even getting up in them guts, like if they are indistinguishable, then the only reason why to draw a line between these two things is because you're on an ideological bent, because you are discriminating against them for basically no reason, which would be transphobia.
Or if you, even though that is the biological truth, or that you're mean and vicious.
True.
Look, Sports Illustrated's a free company, it can do what it
Yes.
wants, right? It's a private company. But there is obviously a social attempt to normalize the idea that biological men who look like women are in fact women, which of
yeah.
course is a wild degradation of what it actually means to be a woman.
Well, what does it mean to be a woman? That's a good question, isn't it, Ben? Like, could you answer that question?
A word with an actual definition. So it's pretty obvious what sport.
Okay, well, but what's the actual definition? They'll say adult human female. But, like, what, I mean, socially, whenever we're talking socially, what is the difference? Because if you saw Leyna Bloom, you would not be able to distinguish her from other women unless you had, like, read her Wikipedia page or some shit like that. That's the only way you could know. And if that's the only way you could know, then, like, you would just treat her the same as anyone else.
Sports Illustrated is doing here. But Sports Illustrated didn't stop there. So one of the other models on the cover of SI Swimsuit Edition is, of course, the tremendous Megan Thee Stallion, because of her tremendous history with sports. According to Sports Illustrated
I don't know who this person is. What did he say?
According to Sports Illustrated Swimsuit,
Nope.
Because of her is, of course, the tremendous Megan Thee Stallion.
Megan Thee Stallion? Okay. She's an American songwriter. Okay. She's a rapper on... Oh, WAP! WAP. I gotcha. Yes. And we know all about Ben's relationship to the song WAP. No, I don't know Megan Thee Stallion, no.
Because of her tremendous history with sports.
WAP is the only song I've ever heard from her, and actually, I've never actually listened to that song before. I've heard the memes, but I've never actually sat down and listened to that song, not one time.
According to Sports Illustrated Swimsuit Edition, Megan Thee Stallion is no stranger to magazine covers, but the rapper and songwriter always dreamed of being on the cover of SI Swimsuit, which is a weird dream.
Why?
She remembers as a young girl looking at the magazine and
F in the chat, boys. I didn't know Megan Thee Stallion. It's true.
saying, one day, this is going to be me. A couple of decades later, the
Why is it a weird dream, though, to be on the cover of Sports Illustrated? I don't understand the problem with this.
Houston native would have several Grammys under her belt and make history as the first rapper on the SI Swimsuit cover. And she is the perfect fit. Amazing. Amazing.
What's the problem with this? He's not saying anything. He's just said that she did the thing.
And then, finally, they have an athlete on the
I mean, good for her, right?
cover. So who is the athlete who's on the cover of Sports Illustrated? The athlete on the cover
It's been, what do you expect? I know. I know.
of Sports Illustrated is Naomi Osaka. Now,
That's a tennis player. I know that person.
you will recall that Naomi Osaka
I don't know Megan Thee Stallion, but I know who Naomi Osaka is.
withdrew from one of the tennis majors after a blow up with the media in which she just wouldn't do her media hits. And the ATP, the Tennis Professional Association, they said you need to do that, right? It is your job. Part of your job as a tennis player is to deal with the media, because this is true in all sports. You're supposed to do the press conferences. And Naomi Osaka then went out and she claimed that she suffered from deep anxiety. Not diagnosed anxiety, just deep anxiety at dealing with the media.
Okay, so if you're confronted with a situation and you're like, okay, this makes me like squicky, like I really don't handle these situations very well. I am a tennis player. I'm not a publicist, okay? I don't deal with like public relations. I just want to play some tennis. Like, I don't see the problem with this. I don't understand why he's got such a fucking issue with that.
Okay, fair enough. If you suffer from, like, I know people, I'm very close to people who have anxiety disorders that ought to be treated with kid gloves. You have to make provision for that, obviously. Naomi Osaka sort of suggested that that's what was going on. You know what people with anxiety disorders typically don't do? People who are shirking media attention, people who just want to stay away from the media and don't want to be involved with me. You know what they typically don't do? Pose for the cover of, I believe, Time magazine has now done a cover on Naomi Osaka.
Okay, wait, hold. Oh my God, he's so stupid. Like, there's a difference between somebody who's just like, she's not like an Instagram model. She's not posting selfies all the time and trying to rack up as much attention as possible, and is not trying to wrap herself in as much communication with the public as possible. As far as I understand, she's a fucking tennis player, and she's like, I just want to play tennis. And so if she's on the cover of Time magazine, that's a huge honor, right? Sometimes. So that's a huge honor. She wants to be to have that honor bestowed upon her, so she can be on Time magazine, so she can promote her brand, so that more people will know who she is, so more people will buy her merch, so she can make more fucking money, so she can continue to play tennis. This has nothing to do with contacting other people or being around the press or asking any questions or anything, or answering any questions or anything like that. So like, oh God, I assume is thinking that like a tennis player has to do what he does, where he has to like, be in conflict with people or some shit. I have a legitimate anxiety disorder, and I'd bear it for Sports Illustrated. Yes, for sure. To be on the cover of Sports Illustrated, especially if you've got a brand that you're trying to sell. Obviously, she meant the public, but Ben is trying to distort her validity by grasping for straws. For sure. Yeah, he's just trying to grab onto anything that will work. Like, I don't even know why we're bringing these people up. Like, are we just talking about shit about people that are on magazine covers in general? Like, I don't even understand the relevance to this title of talking about Naomi Osaka.
And also Sports Illustrated. So strange that she doesn't want to take questions from, people who ask critical questions, but
Wait, she doesn't want to take questions. Cameras don't ask questions, okay? She's just... Oh my God.
If you are doing...
I'm sure she has a publicist that handles these things. And like there's been celebrities throughout all of time that have been like not very good with handling the public or public relations or journalists or paparazzi or anything like that. There's lots of people that are like that, but they have a job to do, and her job is playing tennis.
A Sports Illustrated cover or a Time magazine cover, then all of a sudden all the hesitancy goes away. And by the way, it's not as though Naomi Osaka was being asked like vicious, brutal questions. She was being asked questions about like her performance as a tennis player.
All those critical tennis questions to be asked, yeah.
Says Sports Illustrated. Naomi Osaka.
Well, that's the thing, is that I can understand. Like, say, if I were to be interviewed for TV, if they were to ask me about My Little Pony, right? Like, I don't. Oh, well, I mean, okay. I would love it. I would get on there and fucking gush. So let's pretend that I had anxiety, right? Or like that I was an anxious person. If I could sit around and make YouTube videos about My Little Pony all fucking day long. And then if a magazine approached me and said, I want you to pose on this cover because we're going to talk about My Little Pony and we want you to be the face of it, I'd be like, cool. But this is different than like answering questions, because like people with anxiety, especially an anxiety disorder, this is usually, it is, you don't have a disorder because you are, you don't have a disorder because you have a rational fear of things. An anxiety disorder is like having an irrational anxiety over certain things is kind of like the whole meaning of an anxiety disorder. So I don't understand what he's fucking saying, because like she might be up there like worried that she's gonna say the wrong thing or whatever, or look like an idiot, like trip over her words. Maybe she's not the best public speaker, all that kind of shit.
Osaka is no doubt an athletic powerhouse at 23 shields, 4 Grand Slam titles, and is headed to Tokyo to compete in the Olympics. This comes after defeating former U.S. Open champion Samantha Stosur in her WTA Tour debut at just 16. It's her strength and power off the court that makes Naomi a true legend. She's raised awareness about racial injustice, human rights, and mental health, cementing her as one of the most outspoken professional tennis players. Outspoken except when she won't talk to anybody who, has a question.
It's okay, but that's different. It's different than if someone, okay, this is like the difference between a debate bro and like a video essayist. You see this all the time on left Twitter where you'll have video essayists talking shit about the debate bros and then the debate bros talking shit about the video essayists. The video essayists are all about getting together they'll have like a React Andy type of situation, but what they want it to be very, very sourced. These people don't want to say anything wrong. They want to make sure they're saying exactly what they want to say, and they're very deliberate in all of their words. And a lot of people like me just like to sit here and bullshit and just kind of talk at the video like off the cuff. And a lot of people can't do that. There's lots of people that are unable to do that either way. Like I tried to do video essays and whatever, but I just don't have the attention span to sit down and like write out a script and like do all of that H-bomber guy shit. I just can't do it. And so it's all about diversity of tactics. And if she wants to use her platform to promote ideas that she thinks are good, even if she is unable to like be confronted with these types of things, I think that's perfectly fine. If all your advocacy is retweets or likes or clever sayings on Twitter and whatever, then good, go for it. If you can't answer questions, then don't answer questions.
My favorite quote from her Time magazine cover piece is she suggested, "I just don't understand why anyone would disagree with me." Like she said she was surprised that anyone would disagree with her about her very left-wing view of race in the United States.
I wonder what that view was.
She was named one of 2020 Sports Illustrated Sportspersons of the Year for her activism, was on Time's annual list of the 100 most influential people in the world.
Wait, what was the take, though? Why would anyone, she said, I don't understand why anyone would disagree with me. What if her take was like, what was his video about again? For sure, like, what the fuck are we even talking about anymore? But I guess back on this point, he says this. Wait, hold on. I wonder what the take was. Oh man, I wish I could find out. Because like, if I said, for instance, I think that black people are perfectly fine. And I like black people just exactly the way they are. And I think that black people should be afforded all of the same rights as everyone else. And if anyone disagreed with me, then yeah, I would be like, I can't imagine why anyone would disagree with me. And I would not really honestly be willing to be challenged on that. Like I would not in good faith be able to like sit around and think, are black people worth less than white people? Like I would not be able to entertain that question in good faith. And so like, if that was the nature of her take, then I don't understand why that would be a bad thing for her to say that.
Finally, there is the Sports Illustrated take on Leyna Bloom. Okay, so here is what the Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition says. Quote, Leyna Bloom began her rise, remember Leyna Bloom is a biological man, began her rise to fame in the ballroom dance community and has since broken numerous barriers in the modeling world. She was one of the few openly transgender models to walk the runway during New York Fashion Week in 2017 and was the first transgender woman of color to appear in Vogue India. And how about acting? Yes, she's tackling that too. Leyna made her acting debut in the film Port Authority, marking the first film in Cannes Film Festival history.
No, that was not my Ben Shapiro impression.
That featured a transgender woman of color in a leading role. Now, Leyna makes history yet again as the first transgender cover model in Sports Illustrated swimsuit history and the first trans person of color to appear on our pages. More importantly, the 27-year-old uses this platform to speak about acceptance, love, and change. She's passionate about inspiring others to love themselves and be who they want to be, unless they're a dude who just wants a biological woman, in which case they're a vicious, brutal sexist.
What? What? I didn't understand any of that fucking sentence.
A woman, in which case they're a vicious, brutal sexist. That'd be terrible. who they
What?
want to be, unless they're a dude who just wants a biological woman, in which case they're a vicious, brutal sexist.
Unless they are a dude who just wants a biological woman and the what? I don't think that, okay. I don't know, maybe he's hitting on the super straight thing. Honestly, I'm going to be totally honest with you. I understand that the super straight thing started as like a transphobic meme, but I mean, if we're being real about it, the concept of a cis man being like, I really want to only date cis women, and that's fine. I don't think anybody really cares. I don't think there's any trans woman out there that's like, nope, you have to date me. Because I don't think that trans women really would want that. I don't think any trans woman on the planet would want to be subjected to a partner that's going to question the legitimacy of their existence. You know what I mean?
That'd be terrible. So say the editors, among the many things we've learned over the past 18 months is how much we value being part of a community, how much we miss that interaction when it's taken away. This issue represents the culmination of our powerful community coming together during these trying times to make history. This is what the editor says. So, wonderful stuff.
It sounds based as fuck. Like, cool.
I'm sure that all of the 17-year-old boys who are receiving the Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition will be thrilled to see a man who believes he is a woman. And
Oh my god, just turn the fucking page. There's more pages than the cover.
has had surgeries to look like a woman on the cover of the magazine. Now, again, I don't care very much about the Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition.
After ranting about magazine covers for 8 minutes, we get this line.
The magazine. Now, again, I don't care very much about these.
Ranting for 8 minutes and then concluding that with, I don't really care, is it's just so good.
Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition. Just as a cultural marker, it seems significant, right? We're not going to play this gaslighting game where the left does something. They say it's highly significant. You point out that it is highly significant that we are treating a transgender woman
The same as a woman? Oh my god, the horror.
the same way we would treat an actual born woman swimsuit model on the cover
He has yet to explain why this is a problem.
of magazines. And then they say, why are you even noticing? Is it important to you? The Sports Illustrated cover isn't important.
Some of the boys wouldn't even know she was trans, and Ben lies to himself like he says he's a libertarian. For sure. Like, you cannot tell me. Like, nobody would look at this picture and be able to tell. If you had no idea who Leyna Bloom was, you would not know. You would not know. There's no way to know. They could, like I said, they could have nude pictures in there and no one would know. But I'm absolutely certain that there are, there's an article. There's an article in there that talks about her being trans. I'm sure of it. They're not like passing her off as a cis woman or anything like that. But there's just no utility in being like, this is a biological man.
That'd be terrible.
Oop.
For action when it's taken away. This issue represents the culmination that all of the 17-year-old boys who are receiving an actual born point out that it is highly significant that we are treating a transgender woman the same way we would treat an actual born woman swimsuit model on the cover of magazines. And then they say, why are you even noticing? Is it important to you? The Sports Illustrated cover isn't important to me. What's important to me is the mandate that has come down from our cultural commissars that we act as though a male who has had hormone treatments and surgeries is the full equivalent to a woman in every way, including in terms of sexual attraction.
I don't think so. Are there people saying this though? Isn't there people like, if she's that's the thing. Oh my god. Like, okay. I'm trying to work out an analogy here. Okay. So if you look at lines on a page and the lines on the page look like a woman, like a drawing. Yeah, what the fuck is he talking about? But if the lines on a page look like a woman, then and people are like sexually attracted to that woman, we know that it's not a woman because it's actually a piece of paper with lines on it. It's a drawing, you know? But lots of people consume drawn pornography all the time. Like it's a whole thing. There's a whole industry of drawn pornography. That's not a quote unquote real woman, but it's okay, you know, in the sake of like a magazine cover, which is kind of like the basis of like lusting after a magazine cover. There is no difference between a photograph and like a drawing, you know, like finding enjoyment of that. Are the Coke lines? Because we're gonna need that after this. Yeah.
That is a very interesting and I think rather unsupportable take in actual life, but it's something that the media wish to cram down.
I'm sexually attracted to Piccolo from DBZ. He's not a man, so what is Ben on about? Yeah. Exactly. Like, Leyna Bloom is not a man, so yeah, I have no idea what the fuck he's talking about. If somebody found Leyna Bloom attractive,
For sure.
He never really established why that would be a bad thing. We find things that are not women sexually attractive all the time because they represent women socially, like a drawing or something like that. It's the idea or whatever. It's a silly point. I don't understand really what the point he's trying to make. It's crazy.